their government very seriously. Like, kind of, like there was like the French Revolution that I guess started from Freemasons lodges, kind of talking amongst themselves about, gathering up enough people to decide to start trying to overthrow the government. Like stuff does happen once in a while with that stuff, but that's all later in the past. But yeah, for the Roman Catholics particularly, the 1200s. I can't remember what year it was. Somewhere in the 11 and 1200s. They The Freemasons were tied and connected to the Knights Templar. Obviously, the Knights Templar had a falling out with the Catholic Church, and one of the most notable men that was a Freemason was Jacques de Molay, and he was pretty unfond of the Roman Catholic Church or the kings of the time. He got burned at the stake, so everybody's got a little beef back in those days. But
So you said this was in the 1200s?
I think it was the 1200s. Yeah, Jacques de Molay. Yeah, he got burnt. It was like a Knights Templar Freemason guy that got burned at the stake, and he was a pretty respected one at that, according to the Freemasons. They kind of think pretty fondly of him, so they hold that against the Catholics a little bit. But the Catholics hold more of a grudge against the Freemasons than the Freemasons do against the Catholics, because they blame not only the French Revolution but also the separation of church and state, where the church has lost their powers in the 11 and 1200s, due to, like, there was a king that wanted to have a divorce, and basically there's a lot of people, including the Freemasons and the Knights Templar, who was saying, well, who are they to say they're the boss of the land? This is your land, king guy. And that's when the kings started deciding, oh yeah, this is my kingdom, not God's kingdom. And so they're still pretty pissed about that we
So,
basically
so that
made it separate land.
so is that like, was that part of the history, like King Henry and the what's that guy's name, the Anglican Church, like
Maybe I don't know exactly where all that stuff plays in with the Anglican churches. I'm not very familiar with the Catholic Church or any of that stuff.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I actually didn't even know the Catholic Church existed or was separate from any form of Christianity until I became a Freemason, and then some Catholic guy confronted me about it and told me I was some Satan worshiping pedophile piece of shit that's going to hell. And I was like, who the hell are you and where'd you come from? I'm like, why do you guys hate us so much? I'm like, what is this? And he's like, we're the Catholics. You guys screwed us. I'm like, what? Like, okay, man, I'll look into that.
So
Like,
you're
that's
saying that
crazy. You
like
just attacked me like that, though.
yeah. So you're saying like they're no longer like the same Masons from like the from
Oh yeah,
the
no, they're like three versions later. Like, this is like Freemasonry 3.0 or 4.0 at this point. And it's just like with the Catholics, they made terrible mistakes back in the day, like the Crusades and all the and I could point out I could
yeah.
talk all day about things Catholic Church has done wrong. Anything that exists for 2,000 years is going to have mistakes along the way. And they even admit that with their papacies and stuff. They're like, hey, we got bad popes. I'm like, yeah, well, we got bad Freemasons, man. Stop killing us.
Yeah, 'cause I know
you
they
know?
were like kind of looked a little bit into it, and like not too much,
Yeah.
but I looked a little bit into the history of it, and like
Mhm.
I know that they were killing each other, like the Freemasons and the Jesuit order was like going at it like some ninjas. Like, thought it was pretty interesting that they were hunting each other down.
Yeah. Well, and like they had another, obviously the Freemasons got pretty well attacked back in those days, and it was a pretty successful hunt by the Catholic Church too. At that, I mean, they really put Freemasonry completely in the dark for nearly 400 or 500 years, and then it started popping back up a little bit in the 1600s or so, and then it was kind of like just like an unspoken thing, because again, it was kind of stonemason based
Yeah,
more than anything, and the guilds were just kind of had to do stuff like that. But they popped their heads out of the dark a little bit. They're like a French Revolution here and there. But then the most notorious, or the most recent, like attack on a Freemason in modern day time was well, there's one minor one that happened in like the last year that was kind of just swept under the rug. But the Holocaust actually was a major deal for the Freemasons, because we had a lot of Freemasons in Europe, and the Third Reich was not fond of them either. That actually, there was a quote from Adolf Hitler that said, they have him quoted saying, "It'd be all for nothing to kill every Jew in the Third Reich area, or the German, whatever he called it, this, whatever he called the Nazi regime area. But he said it'd basically be all for nothing if he could not also like exterminate all the Freemasons from the lands as well.
Damn.
That's how they went on a massive hunt for them too.
So like how far like you're Southern Baptist, huh?
No, I grew up Baptist a little bit, but not really like going to church active. It's just what my family said they was, and we went there for funerals and weddings. But I
Yeah.
uh, I went to a Pentecostal church after that. I was saved there, and now I'm with a Methodist church right now. But I'd consider myself really just kind of non-denominational. I don't really hold myself to too
Well,
much of those
I
church
just I just noticed
bylaws and junk.
there was a lot of like Southern Baptists that were Freemasons.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
How was
yeah.
your
The Methodist
experience?
church isn't very fond of them.
Oh really? Or not?
Yeah,
How come?
yeah, but we get along though. They kind of, well, the Methodist Church are kind of like, they're kind of like 50% Catholic, I would say. They're like the happy Catholics. Like they're pretty Protestant. They don't believe in the Pope and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they also don't believe that the sacrament turns into literal flesh and blood or nothing crazy like that. They're pretty laid back, but they feel they took offense about the whole deal with the Freemasons and the control they had of the politics back in the day. So they have it as a church bylaw that, like, as a Freemason, if I'm going to be involved in a Methodist church, I have to make known to like the staff and stuff that, like, hey, just let you know I'm part of the Freemasons. Like, almost like I'm telling them, like, just letting you know I'm a communist spy, like, or something, like,
Dang.
pretty crazy. But but nothing ever
So
came of it. Like, they don't really judge me
how
for it,
long
nothing. But
how long ago were you a Pentecostal?
it's been probably 4 or 5 years.
And then what happened there? What ended up happening at the Pentecostal
Well,
church?
I loved it, man. I went to an Assembly of God church, and that was like my home church, and I miss it to this day. But I kind of had a falling out because um, there was a lot of heavy. I understand what we're taught to do in the Bible and stuff, and and we're obviously supposed to avoid sin and stuff. But the level of judgment I was receiving from the church was pretty up there. And one of the big falling outs I had, the biggest situation I had was where I was with that church for nearly 5 years. I
Yeah.
was a youth leader, played music for them, Sundays and Wednesday nights. Was very active in church, done everything I could for them. But all of a sudden, they kind of decided that what is this guy doing? The guy just like drove off the road and freaked out.
Really?
Yeah, he's like driving a BMW and like he was in the middle lane, then he shot across, tried to take an exit, and I don't know what he's doing. Anyways,
Yeah, I've seen people
so
freak out like that.
yeah, I'm up here in Chicago. It's wild up here, man.
It's kind of good
uh,
that after you spend a long time driving, that you kind of know who's texting and everything, huh?
oh yeah, I keep a close eye, man. I see someone even hug a line or two. I'm like giving them extra room and stuff for sure.
Yeah, 'cause like I said,
Um,
I drove like I still drive. I drive limos on the weekend
hmm?
sometimes, but it's like, and I've driven for FedEx and Amazon like the step bands for like probably like 7 years, like on and off. But
Yep.
yeah, I never got into like the big trucks, the big trucks, the 18 wheelers. That's something
Yeah.
I've kind of thought about it.
Yeah, the schooling's a whole process for sure. Especially these days, they passed that deal with the what's it called, like the ELDT, entry level driver training. So you have to take like more hours classes and stuff now, and so they're getting more schooly about everything with it now.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, what were you saying about your experience as a Pentecostal
uh,
church?
oh yeah, so yeah, I was there a long time. I was a youth leader. Was doing everything pretty good, staying out of trouble, but we had one pastor that stepped out, switched churches, and so we got a new pastor in. Well, actually, no, it was two new pastors. The second pastor was cool. The third pastor, this guy was very Southern Baptist, very on fire, like like, and just pretty radical, And I was like, that's cool, I was really getting with it. We had, I think we was getting along real good, had some good energy, and I respected his leadership and stuff. He had some great, ways to help the church. But what happened was he started really pushing hard about the speaking in tongues, and he actually pushed so hard that he said it that um, he was basically judging people who couldn't do it, saying
Yeah,
so that, well,
they weren't
if you
saved.
can't speak in tongues, you're not, yeah, you don't have the Holy Spirit. And so he said, if you don't have the Holy Spirit and can't speak in tongues, you don't need to be a leadership member of this church. And I mean, basically pushed me right out the door, like just out of the blue, man. Like I was no option to be like, hey, let us help you, try to work with you and help you get closer to the Holy Spirit. So maybe you can speak in tongues someday. Nothing like that. It's just like, oh, you've been here for this long, you don't speak in tongues. Well, yeah, we'll get someone else who can help other people speak in tongues. I'm like, wow, man. I'm like, shoot.
That's crazy.
So I mean, that was like a swift kick in the ass. I'm like, man, I loved that church, and everyone there is like family to me still. It's just that I'm like, I can't stick around for that at all. I'm not gonna, And,
So you were there like how
and there,
long? How long were you there?
oh, I was there from my sophomore year in high school all the way up to, gosh, I think I was 23, 22, 23. So like 5, 6, maybe 7 years tops.
Damn, that's
Yeah. So that was a big slap in the face, and then I did some research on the Holy Spirit speaking in tongues thing, and the more I looked into it, the more I felt just more and more uncomfortable about it, and I was like, you know what, maybe this just at all ain't for me. And
was it a oneness
yeah,
Pentecostal or was it a Trinitarian? Oh no, you said it was Assemblies of God, right? So that's a
yeah,
Trinitarian. That's a
AG,
Trinitarian
mhm,
Pentecostal church.
yeah, yeah,
Damn.
and usually they're pretty. I mean, usually they're fairly laid back, But I don't know. That guy just he showed up and decided he was going to go wild, and then here recently, man, it's been getting like worse and worse for the Pentecostal churches. I don't know if you know that. You ever heard of the James River Assembly down there in southern Missouri?
The what?
James River Assembly of God.
No, I haven't. Like, I mean, I was
Oh man.
non-denominational for a while, and like I was involved with
Oh
like charismatics, but so I witnessed a lot of
gosh.
crazy stuff, but I don't really, I don't really know too much about like, I guess certain things that go on within some of these like,
Yeah.
main institutional like churches, because like,
Hmm.
yeah, I know they got the Church of God and the Assemblies of God, right? That's the Pentecostal
Yeah.
Trinitarian Pentecostals that have those two.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
What that guy do or what happened over there?
So that James River one, Assembly of God, they've jumped on the bandwagon trend of like all the major charismatic healer type people. Like this, they started going wild and stuff and saying that like they're like uh, doing all basically performing miracles on people, and like in church instantly crazy type stuff. Like um, the whole church put hands on this woman all together and stuff, and apparently it was on the news, and their claim was that she grew a toe back on her foot that was
Hmm.
previously blown off by her ex-husband who was a meth head or something.
Yeah.
And like all just they've done all sorts of just crazy like miracle performance stuff, and just like, yeah, they've caught a lot of hot water for it. And
I mean, could be true. Who knows? Like,
yeah, well the I don't know. I mean, I think if it was a true thing, they would have provided some medical documents. Like how about show us an X-ray of her foot when she had, four toes from the hospital and she got her foot blown off, and then show us how she has five now, or something like that. Like, uh, yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I think,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've seen a lot of like false things, like hypnosis type of
yeah,
things, but I
that's
also
my fear.
also saw some real things. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, but
Yeah, I'm not saying real miracles can't happen, but I'm saying they're trying to make a fool out of the world. They're trying to make a fool out of God doing that stuff. That's what I feel about it. Like they just got a little too carried away with that one.
Yeah, I
Like
think
it, it feels like a CIA agent is trying to just ruin Christianity. Is what it feels like, man. Like no, no, no,
like
that ain't what this is about, man.
they just took it somewhere else, right? they took it
Yeah,
they took it in a
yeah, they
different
went far
direction.
left field, man. Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind
yep.
of what like when I was in non-denominational, I was around a lot of these charismatics, and I was involved in like deliverance ministry. I don't know if you, I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
know what that is, like where they cast out demons, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like before, I was buying all these books on casting out demons and deliverance, and there's all these people coming to us, and a lot of them, like starting to notice they were just mentally ill. Like there was no real demons. Like there's rarely
Right.
there were some that there was a few that definitely did have demons. Like there was things I couldn't explain, but most of them
Yeah.
didn't have demons, and it was all I noticed all we were doing was just hypnosis. And then,
Mhm.
when I caught on to it, I was like, man, this is not Christianity, and it's like somewhere halfway in there, I was like, bro, like this is
Mhm.
if this is not Christianity, then I don't know what is, because it looks, all these miracles and stuff, so deep into it that
Mhm.
when you think all these miracles
Yeah.
are
And
true, and you finally snap out of it, you're like, man, I don't know what's true anymore, because the other churches ain't doing nothing. So
mhm.
it was kind
Yeah,
of
I don't disagree with that at all, man. I feel like maybe hypnosis and stuff like that and that type of mysticism to Christianity. I don't think that that's a bad thing. A lot of people would just assume that that's something from the devil. I'm like, how do we know it's not a gift from God? Like I mean, he never said that we couldn't have people who were given the gift to perform miracles and do stuff. Like I would still consider it a miracle if you can even by hypnotism help somebody with something they're struggling with in their life. Like I don't see anything demonic or wrong about that at all. If you're doing it through God and with God and giving glory to God for performing stuff, I'm all
yeah.
for that for sure.
I
I
mean, I
just get
don't.
freaked out when people start growing back body parts and crazy shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Like my dad, he smoked cigarettes as a chain smoker for 40 years. He got hypnotized to quit, and a lot of his family freaked out. Like, oh, hypnotism is the devil's duty, and this and this and this. I'm like, well, what'd you want to do? You wanted to watch him die of lung cancer someday instead of getting fixed by this? I'm like, he tried Nicorette, he tried other stuff, he tried cold turkey. He smoked for 4 years straight,
You said
and
he got
this man
hypnotized
smoked
and
two
quit.
packs a day. I mean,
How did he get hypnotized? How do you?
hypnotized.
He actually
Went
went.
to a hypnotist
Oh,
place. I don't know what it was. I was like, yeah,
he went to a real, like,
yeah,
well known
professional
hypnot.
hypnotist.
Oh,
Yep. And she was, yeah,
that's
and she was
crazy.
a faith based one too. She was kind of like she's definitely a Christian, and she was like very high energy and spiritual, but she wasn't like a Wiccan or hippie type. Like she was
Yeah,
she was very Christian about it, and it was great. Yeah, I
she was
mean,
just
but yeah, his
she just
family gave him a little
understood.
flack about it, saying it was a little kooky or something.
She just
Yeah.
understood hypnosis and
Yep.
how it really worked, right? Like
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yep. So there's
interesting,
nothing.
bro.
I don't
Like
think there's anything wrong with that either.
this is a pretty interesting conversation, because like, yeah, for you to you were Pentecostal, and then for you to actually know
Hmm.
somebody who had a hypnosis type of miracle, you know, and
Yeah.
then it's like, and then because I came out of that stuff, and I realized, like, yo, a lot of this stuff is just hypnotic and hypnosis.
Hmm.
There's no
Yeah.
difference between hypnosis and what was going on right there, but like,
No, I'm a firm believer, man, in mind over matter. And I've seen, I've also, yeah, I grew up. All my parents are real old, so my grandparents was all dying at a very young age with me. So I watched all of my grandparents and my great grandparents were dead by the time I was 20. So I also watched, and kind of learned to understand, what people's mentality towards the end of their life looked like and how that affected how they left this world. And
yeah,
I truly believe too that the people who are those old people that are just bullheaded and strong about stuff that just they carry the world on their shoulders and they do their best not to flinch about it. Those are the people that I watched live to be in their 90s, and the people who didn't live to be that long were the ones who who let the pain affect them and didn't give stuff to God. I'm like that's another miracle of itself. My grandpa's wife, late wife Lorraine, she
yeah,
lived to be, gosh, I think she was 95. And the day that they found out she had cancer, they had found masses the sizes of softballs riddled all through her entire body before that she even had enough pain that she would admit that she needed to go to the doctor and be checked out. And that like she was already in so much pain that anybody like me, I would be on the ground crippled and crying. But she was just, she kind of grew tolerant to it through all of her life and stuff, and was just a tough old dog. And but the day that they found it, and it was some of the masses were softball size. She was gone in 2 weeks after that. She went from
Yeah.
feeling perfectly okay to being like, well, I kind of hurt a little bit. Let's go get this checked out. To 2 weeks later, it got her.
Yeah, cause it was probably the fact that she's like, oh man, I got a
Yep.
illness that's gonna kill me, and then she put it in her mind, and her
Hmm.
mind killed her.
Yep.
Like it's like
Exactly.
there's
Yeah.
no.
And before that, she was the type of old person where she barely even took a baby aspirin. She's like, oh, that medicine's that stuff's bad for your liver and this you know she tried to do everything all natural, and she was very spiritual and devout Christian, and yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I definitely
those are the
believe
kind of
that.
people who survive out here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely believe your mind can do. It can actually heal you. You know, it can actually heal your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think in the right format, the hypnotisms and stuff like that, same way. If it can help
Yeah.
people with addictions or whatever they're struggling with, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like your mind, like you can curse yourself and you can curse your body. You
Mhm.
can, through your own
Yeah.
mind, through your own thoughts. But like, I still think
Hmm.
that for some of these charismatic preachers that you know, that are doing things that some of them probably know what they're doing. There's
Yeah.
some of them probably don't, but a lot of them
Hmm.
do, and like.
Yeah.
And if they know what they're doing, bro, and they're
Yeah.
pretending to be prophets and they're taking people's
I know.
money, like, and they're and
Yeah.
they're using the name of the Lord in
Hmm.
vain, like, I don't know, I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Like
For
that's
sure. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, for the ones though, and it is gonna sound weird, but the way I see it is there's a large chunk of the population that I believe, um, that that isn't good with understanding the concepts of reality and Christianity and all this stuff. Just like with politics. Like I love to bullcrap about politics, but I'm not a politician. Like I could not write a law to save my life right now. Like that stuff is above me, and I'll never understand it. And the people that do that job is awesome, but and I don't. The same way I look at that is the same way I look at like preachers and priests and people who are able to do stuff like that. Like
yeah,
I try not to judge them for what they do, because I do believe that in the end it is for the greater good. And no matter how I look at it, like maybe I look at it judgmentally and say, well, I think that they're just hypnotizing people and this ain't right. They're lying to them. They're not, this is just a hypnotism thing. But I'm like, I mean, at the end of the day, that person's being helped and this man's doing that. And, that man may even know. He may even have it in the back of his head, man. I know I'm just, basically hypnotizing people, but, I got to help them, and if this makes them happy and I'm trying to give glory to God, then, I mean,
yeah,
God bless that guy for having to have that on his shoulders.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, like it's just like for me, bro. Like I would rather like keep it real, than
Oh, yeah, I don't blame you a bit. I couldn't do that either. I said, same reason I'm not a politician, the same reason I'm not out there saving people like that, dude. Like, I could never, even if I knew how to do it, I'd have a hard time doing it. Yeah.
yeah. So you said like later on you went into so you left that the Pentecostal, you went to the Methodist church. Like, did you
Yeah,
were you
kind of by accident.
were you a Mason when you were in the Pentecostal church, or that was right after that?
um, it was towards the end of, but yeah, so intermittently, but well, I guess it would have been after. Yeah, it was just shortly after actually. So yeah, because my grandpa had passed away. How I found about Freemasonry was I didn't even know my grandpa or my father was at the time. But in my early 20s, my grandpa had passed away, my last grandparent, and
Yeah,
at his funeral, his brothers from the lodge showed up and done this Masonic ritual rites where they all recited this thing. I can't remember what it was, some scriptural from King Solomon about the temple, and then they did like a ritual, and they was all wearing their aprons and stuff. And I was like, man, like I've never seen this in Christianity. What's this? I'm like, what church did Grandpa go to? My dad's like, that's not a church. That's a lodge, man. I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. And I'm like what's all these wackos wearing the aprons? He's like, I wear one of those too. I'm a Mason. Your grandpa was too. I'm like, oh hell, okay. Well, I'm just gonna shut up now. and so I, after that bit of humbling moments, I just kind of went and did my own research. Then I asked my dad more about it. He's like, quit googling shit and just go do it. And so I went and did it. And I was like, yeah, that was a lot easier than Googling stuff. It's like, man, the internet is not very kind to anything you want to do. Like, if you Google the Catholic Church, you will be like, I don't want anything to do with the Catholic Church.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
they're very against churches and
that's pretty
Freemasons and all of
interesting,
those
right? Like
things.
how like a
Yeah.
lot of like the Pentecostal church, that one example, or the Baptists, like they're just like even in their sermons, they're just attacking like the Catholics
Mm.
or Orthodox is constantly attacking them without really
Yeah.
like for no reason
Mm.
at all. Like, but
Yeah, it's wild, man.
so like what degree did you get to? Are you still like
Uh,
wrapping up or what?
yeah, I mean a little bit. So like, you got to go through like the first three degrees. You got Andrew Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason. And really, once you're a Master Mason, you can do or hold any chair in the entire lodge that you want to, including what they call like worshipful master. And that's just the thing is like you're not obviously you're not literally worshiping, but you're not worshiping this guy, but he's like worshipful in another sense of like you just like it's just a kind of a kick at saying like, hey, that guy's like up there, and but the worshipful master is like the person who sits as like the controller of the entire lodge. So like if there's a lodge in your town, that town will usually have an elected worshipful master for the year or 2 year term or however they do it. But you can be that at just the third degree and never have to receive another degree past that. All the other degrees are what they consider to be like elective degrees. It divides into two after that to York Rite Freemasonry and Scottish Rite Freemasonry. And those obviously, being York like England, and then Scottish as a Scotland, and those are just traditions passed from those areas. They were added degrees that they added to the regular 3 degree system, and the 3 degree system is the one that was mostly based on the stonemason stuff. Everything past that has just been kind of created in the 1600s areas as
Yeah,
like rituals that teach tradition and history and stuff like that and morals. So I did the York Rite Freemasonry, but I haven't done Scottish Rite. York Rite takes you through an experience of like learning about the Knights Templar and all that stuff. It's very Christian based. Part of it is you do have to swear, and obviously to be a Freemason, first of all and foremost, you do have to believe in a God. Like you can be a Muslim and join, but they obviously in my area it's all Christians. But they do have Muslim lodges and stuff like that in all their countries and all the different religions and stuff.
yeah.
But as in my lodge is Christian, so you have to swear as like you're basically taking the oath of basically that of a Knights Templar in a sense of like
So it's all,
they still hold those traditions.
so it's basically all Christians except for Catholics, right? Like the
Yeah, yep. Well, see, Freemasons are actually open to having Catholics there, and they will let a Catholic, like if they want to come into a lodge and they want to give their oath to be part of the brotherhood and not do their brothers long and all that stuff, just the basic oaths of just being in fellowship with us is they're allowed to do that on whichever Bible you choose. So it's like you want to bring your Catholic Bible, it's the 1880 whatever version instead of the King James. They're like, whatever. You want to bring a Quran, whatever. Like, as long as you believe in a God and you're okay with referring to your God or God in general as
yeah.
the supreme architect. That's what they kind of hold to be the thing.
So like
It's like,
so like
as long
that
as you
as a
believe in your God as a creator.
so I remember like there's a time like I was listening to those like, it's called like Morals and Dogma, right? By I forget the
Oh,
name.
Albert Pike.
Yeah, Albert Pike.
Oh man,
Morals and Dogma.
gosh, isn't that guy just a total mind? Oh man, explicit. Like
Yeah, Morals
that
and
guy's
Dogma.
wild. Yeah,
Albert Pike, and then there's this other guy, Manny P. Hall. Manny P.
yeah, Manny
Hall.
P. Hall. Yep,
Yeah, I used to
yep.
listen to a lot of their talk. Well, his
Oh yeah.
Manny P. Hall has a bunch of talks, but the other guy's obviously like he was long gone before recordings. But he's got
Albert.
these.
Yeah,
So what do you think? What do you think of that?
insane man. Like that guy was like.
What do you think of that one letter, like the three world wars? You think that was real?
I'm not for sure.
The
I
hits.
I don't know. I've never seen the document, so I can't hold truth to it. I can't hold a candle to it. So I don't. I'm from the show me state, man. I'm like, you don't show me, I don't believe you. You want me to believe you, show me. And
Yeah.
uh,
So I
so
remember watching.
I don't know.
There was a documentary like a while back. I'm not. I don't remember if it was Discovery Channel or History Channel where they went. They actually
Hmm?
went into Washington D.C. And they looked at the document,
Hmm?
and and I was like, yo, this thing's real. Like, and I looked it up, and then you kind of like,
Hmm?
uh, for some reason, like you can't even scavenge that thing on the internet no more. Like it's not
Yeah.
it's not even
Yeah,
it's
that's, yeah.
like
Last I had heard, it was debunked, and they said something about it wasn't his handwriting. They thought that it was someone basically writing a satire deal.
yeah,
They
but
that
it's
was my understanding of it. I could be. Like I said, I can't hold a candle to it, so I don't know what to say about it. Really, it is
yeah.
wild for sure.
But it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of interesting though. Like I think it was History Channel that did a documentary, and then
Hmm?
things the things that were said on the Third World War is like they're kind of like unfolding
Hmm?
today. Like it's almost like
Yeah.
these prophecies are like
Hmm?
to the teeth. And I was like, dude, like this looks more
Yeah.
like a decree or some kind. Like
Hmm?
here's my plan, guys. Like this is what we got to
Hmm?
do, and then that's kind of like I don't know.
Hmm?
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, yeah, I don't know, but in the same sense, there's a lot of things, in the Revelations that talks about the wars we got going on right now too, and it was crazy that, that basically I know they was talking about like the stuff with Turkey was something in Revelations about like Turkey being involved, and that region would be involved in like the last World War, and then whenever I heard on the news that like someone like NATO pissed off Turkey at some point or something like that. I'm like, oh man, that's not that. Let's not break the seventh seal or something here, guys.
Yeah,
Like, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Albert Pike is definitely an interesting guy, but I don't think that Freemasons as a whole look to him as any sort of prophet by any means. But
well,
they did respect his work a lot. Like his Morals and Dogma book, they used to give out to every 32nd or 33rd degree Mason. So every time you got to that degree, they would give you an Albert Pike book, and so that's what everyone refers to when they're like, "Oh, well, you don't know till you're 32 or 33."
yeah,
Literally, the only thing that you're going to learn differently is because that book used to be like secret, but now it's totally open to the public. But that was the secrets of Freemasonry, was the Morals and Dogma book. So that's why it
yeah.
always cracks me up when people are like, "Oh, you're not a 33rd, man. You wouldn't know." I'm like, everything is out there, bro. We got the internet. It's 2024. You don't think some guy somewhere has put out there what's in there?
So like, so
It's all
here's
there.
the interesting thing, right? Like earlier you were talking about when your grandpa passed away, right? You said how like
Hmm?
they read something from Solomon's book, like
Yes, it was from King. It was from something that King Solomon had wrote, and I think what's the book after? Is Ecclesiastes he wrote?
Ecclesiasticus or
Yeah,
Ecclesiastes,
I think. Yeah, I
Ecclesiastes.
think it was a scripture from that, and yeah, and it was like something referring to. There was a scripture from that I think that they talked about, and then maybe there was something referring to the building of King Solomon's temple, because
Yeah.
that's obviously
So
something Freemasons are
isn't that like
obsessed with.
isn't that like one of the main things about like masonry to build
Oh yeah,
a temple of Solomon? Like
yeah, yeah. Well, they're very obsessed with like the architectural stuff like that to do with King Solomon, because like obviously stonemasons. So coming from stonemasons, turning into something to be taught from morals. So obviously,
yeah.
what greater example biblically to use than King
So
Solomon's temple and all
like
its
I don't
architecture, right?
agree with freaking what's his name Hitler, right? Like I don't agree with him. But earlier you said something about how like Hitler was trying to take out the Zionists as well as the Masons, and
Yeah.
what do you think? Do you think there's like a correlation between Zionism and Masonry? Like because I know like the
The,
Masons talk about the Kabbalah, right? The Kabbalah and the Hermetic. Forget the name of the
yeah.
Hermetic
I mean,
laws or whatever. Because they touch on like Egyptian mysticism
yeah.
and Jewish mysticism, and it's like they both have these core ideas, right? Where they want to bring in the third temple.
Yeah. I know what you mean there, but at the same time, we have to remember the context of like, like when a person who is like of Jewish faith or that religion of Judaism and stuff like that, when they're talking about stuff to do with when they're talking about those kind of things, it's one thing. But when a guy is like a Freemason, even if he's Albert Pike, as a Freemason, he's not representing a theology in that sense, because like I said, it's not in today's world. I mean, maybe it was, like before the Civil War, because that's about where Albert Pike had his fall, was shortly after that. Maybe before that they tried to push a little theology,
Like,
but there's
what do you
not
mean?
really an official stance of a Freemason. You know what I mean?
What was his fall like? Because I don't know. I don't know too much. I actually haven't looked too much into the history of him. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
just
he was over. Albert Pike was actually the what was it? The Grand something of the Grand Valley of the South. So he was from Arkansas. He was like a governor or something, or a senator at the time in Arkansas around the Civil War, and he was a general in the Confederate States Army. And then during all that stuff, he was I don't remember what period of time it was that he wrote the Morals and Dogma, but it was somewhere in that period. War torn America, he's having all these philosophical outcomings, and so that kind of adds a little context to the book too. Imagining, this guy's, the general of a union that's going against a civil war situation, and then so obviously, South fell apart, and basically everything got dissolved, and Freemasonry in the South included. Everything was pushed into the dark in that sense. When the government was put away and it was taken over by the Union after their win and success with the
so
Civil War,
he was
the same
actually in
thing
the
happened with
South.
Freemasonry.
Like, was he
Oh yeah,
actually?
yeah, he was of the South for sure.
That's kind of interesting because I mean there was a lot of the other like some of the other Masons were in the North, right? Like they were
Yeah,
going
yeah,
they were going against each
mhm,
other, right? Even
yeah,
they were
yeah. Brothers against brother, mano y mano. Yeah.
yeah, that's
And
crazy.
it was so they so when once the federal government of the Union took over the South, likewise the Freemasons kind of thought, well, there's a bunch of Freemason lodges down here. We need to make sure that they're all going to concede to the Union's way and laws up here too. So they actually kind of had to go down there and clean house in all the Masons lodges too, in the sense of like they was afraid that there could be some sort of civil war outburst from the Freemasons or something like that in that sense,
That's a
because
lot
same
of
thing with the French
spankings.
Revolution. Do what?
That's a lot of spankings.
A lot of spankings, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of Freemasons in the South, man. Yeah, so they had to go through and that's kind of what set up all the regulations for Freemasonry today. And that's my point I'm getting to there is that, um, after the Civil War, the Union and the Freemasons and the government were all working so hard together in the sense of being transparent about what Freemasonry was and what was going on in the South of the time, to the
Yeah,
extent that now the federal government regulates Freemasonry to every extent, and they would never let us hold an ideological beliefs or something like that as like similar to a religion. It's very much not a religion, and to an extent too, we also are held to the point that it's kind of a weird kind of gray area that like as a Freemasonry by the bylaws of Freemasonry, which was agreed upon by the federal government. We do not recruit people whatsoever because that would basically put us into the category as like a dangerous occult situation or like a militia or all that stuff. Like there's zero recruiting. Like it would be illegal for me as a Freemason, according to the Freemasons, and how our structure would punish me and my system, not like the court system, but like the actual Masons Lodge would look at me if I was to go around like, hey, everybody needs to join the Freemasons. We're getting together and going to do something. They would shut me out and kick me out of the club so fast. I mean, like crazy. And it's because of the government oversight. If we got in trouble for that too many times, it would just cost me red flags that the IRS, FBI, and everybody would be down our throats. We wouldn't be able to do nothing. Like takes all the
yeah,
fun out of charity work. You got the FBI knocking on your door, wondering what you guys are doing. they're all very suspicious of everything, so it's more transparent today, and they don't hold ideological beliefs amongst each other. Like I said, there's all different walks of faith, all different walks of life, all different religions, completely even. So yeah, they would be wild to say like, well, because Albert Pike believed this, a Muslim's going to believe that, and he's a Freemason too. Like they obviously there's like totally different worlds.
Yeah.
So maybe back in those days of the South
But so what was
that kind of reign that he was over, they might have thought about stuff like that. But in today's sense, they don't hold those beliefs to be true at all.
yeah, I was gonna
Have
ask
you
what
heard, like,
was the
the mini
belief
Thoreau?
on Jesus? Like, what didn't they believe that he was a Mason as well, or like I think this is something I've heard.
Yeah, well, it's kind of to an extent. It's more so just like a little kind of like a little joke thing of like, well, it says in the Bible that Jesus was a carpenter, so maybe he was like the original Freemason. And then because the joke is that, well, if he was a carpenter and did like woodworking, we're like, well, that area of the world must have had a lot of stonework too. He must have done stonework as well. That would have inherently made him a stonemason. So they're jokingly saying, well, if he's a stonemason, we accept him as a Freemason. It's more so just like really reaching to try to get someone who's popular to like just a joke sort of situation. I've never heard any real claims that someone would try to make it out to be that Jesus had anything to do with some sort of
Yeah.
club. I mean, as far as we can tell, it originated. There were some rituals and stuff that stuck with the world for a long time as part of a working guild, but the Freemasons didn't exist until the 1100s
So
officially.
what about the Eastern Stars? Like, how they come about? The
Women's rights and stuff. As a fraternity, it's for men's only. The Eastern Stars for women's. It came around, I think, in the 50s or 60s area, and it was
so
just kind of becoming a
was it around the
situation
same
where
time during did they actually have anything to do with women's rights, or was it like after women's rights that they came about?
it was actually after women's rights. Yeah, so it kind of followed in suits with that. It was just like women got their voting rights and stuff like that, and all the rights of man, and everyone started kind of getting closer to fair wages and sort of things, which I mean, obviously still is an issue today. I'm not saying that ever happened, but as things were getting more progressive, the Masons Lodge thought, well, give the man's wife something to do, and we could probably build a structure, a system similar to it, but so that it would suit the women and kind of cater to them. So the Eastern Star is kind of like a more evangelical, beautiful kind of version of Freemasonry in that sense. But
Yeah. What about
it's
like
totally the Eastern Star is just totally brought up. It was never existent until like the 50s, I think it
what's the
was.
ties between like the Rosicrucians and Masonry?
Yeah, that one's in the Scottish Rite there. Towards the end of the Scottish Rite, they hold some kind of ideology teachings from the Rosicrucians. That's why you'll see the guys like if they're Scottish Rite Masons, they'll have like that the kind of fez looking hat with the Rosicrucian cross on it, sort of thing. And it's kind of the same thing as like the York Rite with the Knights Templar. Like it's kind of a practice deal where they're just like learning the history, giving it some sort of traditional respect to Masonry.
Yeah.
Are the Knights of Columbus similar to any of these groups?
Oh, Knights of Columbus. Yeah, so Knights of Columbus is like it's like the Catholic version of the Freemasons. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was created. I can't remember when they started, but it basically happened after the popes of the time had banned Catholics from being part of Freemasonry completely, so badly that they actually started excommunicating Catholics for it. So then as a alternative, they thought, well, obviously Catholic men are looking for some type of mysticism in their life and stuff, so they created kind of their own mystic fraternity of the Knights of Columbus.
Yeah, I might
But
become one because I was talking to my dad about it because I knew that my grandfather was one, and then after I started asking him about it, he revealed to me that he's also a knight, and his brother is a high-ranking knight.
Yeah, Knights of Columbus are amazing. I got a lot of respect for those guys, and they do all the same charity work that us as Freemasons do too. And we all get along pretty well. But there's obviously a few jabs at the charity events at each other, like look at the heathens, or something like that, because obviously they're not We're like the
Well,
bad guy
You
version of it or
guys call them
something.
heathens or what?
No, they call us the heathens.
Oh, bro.
So
Why is
my
that? Why do they call you
yeah,
guys
my
heathens? Is there a
I,
reason? Oh, he muted himself.
that's okay. You can talk.
What were you gonna say though? No, he muted
Sorry, I
himself.
had a phone
Oh,
call.
there you go. Go ahead.
Sorry
Don't
about that.
mind me. It's okay.
Oh, he's unmuted, bro. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a phone call. You go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. I was just saying, they kind of joke and give us crap for being heretic and heathens or something like that for not being part of the Catholic Church and joining their cool kids club. Every Catholic I talk to about it would just prefer completely if we just they're like, well, we created the Knights of Columbus. It's the same thing. So why can't you just give up the Freemasons thing because it's tied to terrible things from history? Just join the Catholic Church and do this. It's like, well, the same can be said on both sides, obviously. Like, I could say the same thing about, well, why would I join the Catholic Church? Look at all the terrible things they've done in history. It's like let's just not, like, it's, I don't, there's no reason to go there. Like, what people did 800 years ago, and when something exists for 1,000 years, there's going to be leaders that make questionable decisions and questionable theologies, like, well, the deal with the Catholic Church trying to convince people that they could raise money to get people out of purgatory. So it's all just trying to pay for the
this
church.
is what's kind of interesting right now, right? Like I'm just kind of thinking, right? So like we're in a theology server. Like this is a server where people like debate. You got like all kinds of denominations, right? And they're just debating themselves. But then
submit to Rome.
But then in Masonry, right? In Masonry, you have all these Christians, right, and Muslims, and then and they all kind of like come together, right? And then they still study some theology, right? Like they study like mysticism, Kabbalah, and like just And then it's like, but they come together.
Well, I wouldn't even say that they all study it because again, like I said, after the Civil War. Freemasons as a lodge didn't exist to even really study the mysticism as much as just function in the day-to-day processes of community building, charity stuff, all that kind of things, and it more so just existed as simply a fraternity where everyone could get along. So it really after the Civil War, the mysticism was really absent in that sense.
So what
the lessons are still there, but they don't sit around and talk about theology in a Mason's lodge literally ever.
So what about like the higher ups, like the higher degrees?
I've sat in.
They don't study mysticism.
Yeah, I mean, there's like if you wanted to get part of there's like the cryptic Masons. It's that's part of the York Rite side of things, and they get into like the different decoding type of stuff when it comes to. They're really interested in like for instance the. Oh, sorry. What's it called? The box with the chalices on top. The
gematria. What are you?
No,
the Ark of the Covenant.
Ark of the Covenant. There it is. Yeah, the cryptic Masons are very obsessed with the Ark of the Covenant, and they actually they do like they have an entire research R&D stuff that they are like second to none, maybe to only the Catholic Church, maybe about decoding the history of the Ark of the Covenant. So like that's about as far depth as like they really delve into things historically. Other than that, it's like basically the rest of it, theology wise, is pretty much just history to them. Like it, yeah.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Damien? I think Damien wanted to interrupt. He was gonna say something.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to interrupt.
Oh,
okay. I just want to say submit to Rome.
That's cool.
And
submit to Rome. Yeah.
And level up your Freemason.
I know, right? Yeah.
Get into the headship of Freemasonry, and then come back to us and tell us, please.
Well, I did sit in. I'll have you know, I sat in as treasurer for one meeting in the Grand Lodge of the state of Missouri.
That's a start.
Yeah, and so actually another fun fact is that also after the Civil War, there was no Albert Pike was the last leader of an actual region for Freemasonry as a whole, like over the states. Now, since then, and after the Civil War, everything is individual. So, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the terms like ancient, free, and accepted, or what's the other ones? There's this free ancient Mason, and then there's also Prince Hall Masons. So there's like 3 or 4 different types of Masons across the United States now, and the who decides that is at the state level. So really, the highest ranking man you'll ever find in the United States in terms of like leadership for Freemasonry would be like the governor type positions over each state. So there's no like president of the Freemasons in the world even. It's completely separate deals.
Yeah.
But if you can get into that type of position,
don't you think there's like there's an order within the order, like at this point?
There are to some extent, yeah. I mean,
right.
like
there has to be.
There's stuff like the Illuminati. Like I'll tell you for sure the Illuminati, like Skull and Bones type societies, those for sure exist to some extent. And they probably do use Freemasonry to some extent of some of their theology and ideology. I don't know, but when I think about those things, I look at those guys like Charles Manson holding the Holy Bible. You know, like I look at it no differently than that. That's like, there's always going to be people who take, like there's always going to be cult leaders and stuff like that, and in Christianity who use God's word to do evil and terrible things. And I think the same thing has to do with Freemasonry in the sense of like, there's always going to be some wacko that thinks, and I'll tell you, the best example I could ever give anyone, Joseph Smith of the Mormon Church. That man was a 33rd degree Freemason, took all the teachings of Freemasonry, and then created the entire Mormon Church theology based upon that. Like, so it's like that's the biggest one of all time for sure. Like he rips all the Freemasonry stuff off, like the aprons and all, man. Like they got an apron ceremony and everything.
Hold on, give me a second, bro. I gotta go.
Yeah, good.
Do something.
Good, man. Yeah, that's kind of just the way I look at it, though. It's like in that sense of, and I don't look at it, like I said, with as much government insight as there is and everything. And to my knowledge, as far as all the way up to the Grand Lodge of the state of Missouri, I don't see any possibility of any sort of type of situation where we'd have to worry about a society that would overthrow anything or do anything terrible. Or I don't see any ties to the World Economic Forum, or I would be the first to light a fire under someone's ass about it. I think you'd be surprised how many most Freemasons I know are like 80% of them are military combat veterans. And the other 20% are like nerds who love like oddball theology. Like,
yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
This conversation is pretty interesting, bro. Like, definitely learn a lot of new things about history. But,
so welcome to the Freemasons.
Yeah, welcome aboard. Hello.
So what were you saying about the
Hello.
You're touching upon the Illuminati? You call them you said they were like Charles Manson or something. Is that was your point of view? Why?
Yeah, the way I look at it, like when people are like looking at Freemasonry and they're like, oh well, is there some sort of like hidden club inside of Freemasonry? Maybe because like most people can agree that Freemasonry as a whole is just a giant like worldwide free like charity of the organization as a whole. It just exists as like a basis and organization that teaches countries and communities how to get together and perform charity duties and stuff like that. But there is the opportunity, like you said, with the ancient theologies and stuff, for some wacko like Charles Manson, or particularly my favorite evidence of all time is Joseph Smith. There's always going to be some guy who can learn about Freemasonry, go out into his community, and then proclaim that he saw some golden tablets and that you should follow him and he'll take you to heaven and you should marry many wives and all that stuff. Like, yeah, that stuff happens for sure. And it happens with everything.
It's probably happened a few more times, right? Like, I think.
Oh yeah. He's not the first and probably won't ever be the last.
Witnesses, like I think the leader of the Jehovah's Witnesses was supposedly a Mason too.
Yeah, that's him, Joseph Smith. Yeah,
no,
the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses, they kind of broke apart, but they were originally the same deal.
Yeah, and then you got have you ever heard of John Nelson Darby?
No, I don't know that one.
Nah. So when you were Pentecostal, do you remember hearing about like the rapture doctrine, where they talked about like pre-rapture, post-rapture. You don't remember that?
Remember now? No, they mostly just kind of focused on the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues thing, really.
Oh, okay. Maybe you just
all
maybe it
about
was just
that.
that church. Who knows? Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, there's this guy named John Nelson Darby who also has some books. He he was definitely a Freemason because there was a lot of like wording that he used where he called God a great architect, and like, but he came up with this doctrine called dispensationalism, where he kind of like divides you know he divides the Bible into like dispensations, and then he has like this whole idea of like a pre-rapture idea where like Jesus comes and he raptures up the church and he just like teleports them before the tribulation. And then there's this other guy named Schofield who like he wrote a Bible. I mean, he didn't write a Bible. He basically just printed a bunch of King James Bibles and then he put the commentary on there and he put the doctrine in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And see, a lot of people do that. Yeah, no, like there's so many different versions. Like a new one that's out right now that I've heard of recently is they call it like the Word on Fire Bible. It's Bishop Barron, and there's even a lot of Catholics who are like, love Bishop Barron, but there's some points that he made in there that he shouldn't have made. Like that's not his position to like make that point of view on those subjects. And they said that some of the stuff he said doesn't even align with like the papacy stuff, like the documents from the popes.
Oh yeah. So he puts it on the like in the commentary or what?
Yeah. So the Word on Fire is like his. Yeah, I think it has a commentary on the side. So it's like Holy Bible in the middle, and then like a little like subreddit on the side or something. And it kind of gives like context to some stuff, and some of the context is very useful. And I would argue that as a whole, I think it's a great thing, and I've read a little bit of it and caught some excerpts from it. And I think it's really cool how he puts it. I look at it no different than just like a modern day preacher, but I can see where like the Catholics would jump on him about like, hey, well he's a priest, or bishop, so they're not supposed to really do that. It should be everything that he has should be coming from context from the Catholic Church, and I understand where they're coming from with that. But like to a beginning, like a early Christian, I think that context is extremely useful for making the Bible more personable. And maybe he's right on some stuff, maybe he's wrong about some stuff, but I think as a whole it's extremely helpful to people who, especially like me, who are ADHD, to have a little context inside the scriptures,
Yeah. Oh yeah, they can twist up like because anybody can like like they're like, man, I want to buy a Bible, or they just can I get a Bible? They go to like your average church and then they just hand them one and like they never know what's gonna be in the commentary. So they take the Bible and then start looking at the commentary and they get a whole different version of the gospel,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That we can all agree on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like with the you don't agree there?
No, I'm just kidding. I agree.
Okay. All right. Thanks for agreeing.
My bad.
I was gonna fight you for it. Like, all right, go up to debate 1, man. You're going down.
So what do you think is like the highest like denomination or religion within like the Masonic lodges?
If I had to guess, I would say it's probably I don't know. Like in America, I would say you're probably right on the money with the Southern Baptist thing for sure. In that sense, and Baptist and Southern Baptist, I think would probably cover like America, and then like Europe. I don't know what the major denomination of there would probably be for like Protestant churches, but I think mostly Protestant because of the background of like obviously that you're not allowed to if you're a Catholic. So yeah. I mean, pretty much insert any Protestant church and added to a few Muslims, a few Islamic and odd Zens, Hindu, and
So what he's trying to get at is that I shouldn't be Protestant because most Protestants are Freemasons.
You shouldn't be Protestant because of
Yeah, that's what my ortho bro's gonna tell me right now.
No, I'm just questioning. I'm just getting you know, these are questions that I've always had. You know, so
Yeah.
like whenever I meet
Oh,
a Mason,
you're Orthodox?
yeah, whenever I meet a Mason, like you know, like I like getting certain questions
Yeah.
because you know they all say different things sometimes. Like a lot of them say the same
Yeah.
thing.
But he's basically giving you fuel to destroy me, basically.
No, yeah, and like I said, but I don't know if he's here for that one part about me saying that, like, the Catholic Church has a lot of beef for the Freemasons, but really, the Freemasons as a whole, like, and there was a guy on this server actually told me yesterday. He said he heard that there was a guy in New Mexico that was like a Catholic priest, and he wanted to be a Freemason, but he couldn't because his Bible wasn't the King James version. I'm like, again, every state is over their own jurisdiction. State of Missouri, Grand Lodge, we can't control what New Mexico does or whatever, or just like we can't with any country in Africa or like Russia. Russia has a lot of Freemasons too. I can't. We obviously don't have any connection to them. We don't even talk to them. There's, like,
They're all
there's
over
no
the place,
communications
right?
or anything to them. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, I think I think a good example. It's bad to put it this way because then people are like, "Oh, see, it is a religion," but it's fair to say that every state and every country has their own like denomination of Freemasonry, really, because they conform Freemasonry to fit whatever religious denomination they are accustomed to in the culture.
Yeah, because I
Because
remember
again,
seeing.
overall, it's a charity organization.
I remember
Like,
seeing this one of my favorite boxers. His name is Manny Pacquiao. I don't know if you ever. I don't know if you watch boxing. There's this like Filipino guy. He was also a pastor, and like I think it was like I don't remember how long ago. Was it like 2 or 3 years ago when he became a Mason, and then they had like pictures of him, getting his inauguration and like a video of it, and I'm like, man, there's Masons in Philippines. Like I never would have thought.
oh yeah,
So.
oh yeah, I don't know if there's a country that doesn't have laws. Really, I've seen. I join all the like odds and then like oddball Facebook groups I can find that are Freemasons, and it's really fun following like the ones in Africa because they got like all their cool tribal stuff they're decked out in like for the lodge meetings. It's like cool, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's pretty neat. Yeah, I guess they do work a little bit together in that extent of like if the lodge in Africa, some country over there like Nigeria, for example, if their Masons lodge was like, hey, we're trying to raise some money for some wells or something like that, right? Like they would, if they reach out to us and they're trying to do a fundraiser, we'll help them out. But there's definitely no like leadership or governance over each other at all. Like,
so then, how do you establish a lodge then? Like, does somebody just like want to like build a lodge? Like, let's just say Damien right here. He moves to an island somewhere, and he's like, "Yo,
Yep. Yeah. So if you're not under if the country or state you're in doesn't have one, then yeah, as long as you are like working with some other lodges to like you'd want to be like in some sort of connection just for the help of it. Make sure you're building it on the right basis. But like the best example I can give you is someone just opened in I think it's like Scotland or somewhere in the British area or somewhere out there. They opened up a karate lodge. It's literally it was a karate dojo, and now they do karate Freemasonry or something weird. Like like there's just some wild versions out there, and it's kind of neat.
Things that are getting like Protestantism. They're getting wild.
Yeah,
so basically,
exactly,
you're the Protestant church. Basically, you're the Protestant church.
Yeah, it's another. Yep, you just create your own denomination, right? Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, you could if you were the only guy on the Cook Island, and you want to say you're the Freemasons of Cook Island, you could definitely do that. And there's